gradually settles on the Osun governorship election, attention is now turning to the performance of the technology deployed to strengthen the credibility of the process. A preliminary assessment by Kimpact Development Initiative indicates an 84.7% success rate for BVAS accreditation with a 15.3% failure rate. Now, beyond accreditation, questions remain over the speed and completeness of results transmission to INEC's IREF portal, the handling of technical challenges, and whether the technology ultimately delivered the transparency expected of it. Today, we assess BVAS performance, results upload, and INEC's overall execution of the Osun election. With our guest, we have the former Chief Press Secretary to former Governor Oyetola, who will be joining us shortly. But currently, joining us virtually, we have the Executive Director at TAP Initiative for Citizens Development, Mbasekei Obono. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you so much for having me. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Let's start with the 84.7% BVAS success rate. How would you assess the performance of this? Is this great enough? And your general overview of the performance of the technology in the just concluded Osun gubernatorial elections?
So I think that it's good enough, but it is not great enough. And that we ought to be able to, since we are deploying technology, we ought to be able, and it's just a state government election, it's a state governorship election. It is not even a presidential elections where you say that you have stronger challenges and issues in terms of maybe distribution and network and all that in very dangerous terrains where network would probably pose as a challenge. So it is quite strange that we are still having 15% downtime use of the BVAS, and not just that, it was also down in terms of the accreditation process and all that, but also for the upload of results, which actually brought about some form of tension during the elections because people were waiting. I mean, results were uploaded quickly and very fast. By about 8 or 9 p.m., it's 8 p.m. actually, we noticed that the results were no longer trickling in for close to 3 hours before the final conclusion came in at about maybe 12 p.m. or thereabouts. So I think there is need for us to improve in the technology of BVAS. I'm told that the technology that is being powered by BVAS is actually under the Android 8. I'm not sure about that because I cannot verify. I haven't been able to verify that personally. But what we have known from our own end is that when we deployed our own technology, the iReports app to monitor for citizens to use to upload results, we noticed that IREF takes about 11 minutes. 11 minutes on the average. It takes more, but on the average, it takes 11 minutes for results to be uploaded and then viewed on the portal. While our own portal didn't take up to that, it was basically about 1 minute to something seconds. So they've got to be able to know how they manage that technology and work on it. So that people can basically have full confidence in INEC to say INEC is not manipulating results, because the moment there is delay in transmission of results, the moment there is delay in collation of results, then you bring about the tension and suspicion that things were going to happen. And so you don't even blame people, you don't blame the political actors who were accusing INEC and accusing some politicians that they were making calls to ensure that the results were upturned and that the fraudulent results were passed in. So there is that need for INEC to work on this technology to be much more faster, prompt and timeous, so that citizens can, since INEC is a viewing portal, citizens can see what's going on INEC portal, and they will be able to have their minds rest assured that there is no hanky-panky or there is no manipulation of results at the back end.
Thank you so much, Mr. Obono. I would like to bring in Mr. Ismail Omipidan into the conversation. Good morning to you.
Hey, thank you.
Yes, we've witnessed the just concluded Osun gubernatorial elections. I would like to know what your assessment of the entire exercise is. What was good for you? What areas need improvement? And what incidents would you say calls for concern as far as you're concerned?
Well, first, let me say that I thank God that with regards to the peaceful conduct of the election, that my predictions came to pass. I did say last week on your platform and other platforms that I had cause to engage with, that our people are very determined people, and that if those causing violence, if their intention is to scare voters away from their polling units, I said that that won't happen. I also went further to say that the tension will not debar our people from coming out en masse to cast their ballot, and I'm happy all those came to pass. Talking about the election, so far from the reports we have seen, and from where I also voted, for now, I would say that the election passed all the relevant tests with regards to transparency. The only worry I have, and I'm not sure if it is the electoral management body that will do that, is that some activities leading to the election call for concern. For instance, there were visible passing of would-be voters through taking of oaths, through swearing by whatever they believed in, to promise that they were going to vote. I haven't seen how that has influenced the outcome of the election, but the mere fact that these activities occurred, for me, cause for concern. Again, the issue of vote buying, I do not know how we can wriggle out of that because both before and even during, vote buying was wide scale. And I must say that that is not peculiar to Osun. At least in all the elections I have covered since 2015, we have seen that play out very visibly. As a matter of fact, the Ekiti election that I covered in 2018, I was around a particular lawmaker, and he told his boys that he doesn't want what happened the last time to happen again in his polling unit. That if they are giving 10,000, since the other people are giving 10,000, they should increase his own to 15,000. So I think Nigerians and all stakeholders, we must come together to see how we can play down this aspect of our electoral activity, because it's making election to be very, very expensive to prosecute.
Can you mention, maybe give us clarity as to the lawmaker you're referring to?
It would be unfair of me to mention his name. One, because this thing happened in 2018.
Okay.
Two, the colleague who took me there extracted a commitment from me that I was not going to mention his name. I went ahead to do the report, but I didn't mention the name of the lawmaker. I think the title of that report was Naira Rain in Ekiti. I give vivid description of what I saw.
And okay, which political party? We don't want to mention name.
That would be unfair too. That would be unfair. But in that election, I challenged Governor Fayemi. In fact, the question I asked him when we got to his residence, I told him that I understand that in his area, I can't remember how much I mentioned there was, and the way his countenance changed and the way he responded to that question, you will know that I knew exactly what I was talking about. But you see, it's not peculiar to one political party. All of them are involved.
Okay. Let me go back to other guests, Mr. Obono. You also were able to put out an application that was monitoring the election results real time. Vis-a-vis with what we saw on the IREF portal, what would you say your application was able to accomplish that INEC couldn't?
So, first of all, it was about the timing. INEC portal was really, really slow in transmitting results for people to view. Also, IREF, obviously, according to the law, the Electoral Act, and also the guideline of INEC, IREF portal is meant to be a viewing portal, not a collation portal. Therefore, that became a lot more difficult for citizens to aggregate the scores that were being collected on the field. But our own portal was able to aggregate that. And for those who were interested in viewing the results, to also view the results real time. Then another most important aspect of it is that our platform, essentially, the iReports INEC platform, was able to get incidence reports real time. And verification of those reports were made less than 3 minutes, So when people send in reports to say, in my area, this is what is going on, and that's what is going on, the fact that they send pictures, we are still able to verify those reports real time without necessarily being on ground, that particular local area. So these are the major distinct features that our portal, the iReports INEC portal, have that INEC needs to either beef up or provide more access or functionality to ensure that the iReports, the INEC's IREV delivers comprehensive elections.
Move back to Mr. Omipidan. You did mention something earlier about the speed of your INEC, iReport INEC platform in uploading to your portal. It's significantly faster than INEC's. And elections are 5 months away in January. Is there still room for INEC to improve on the technology and speed? Would it be too expensive, or is it a case of just updating this OS, the Android OS, to the latest, and that might improve the speed?
Is a question for me?
Mr. Obono, please.
Okay.
So I don't think that it's about money, first of all. I think it's about knowing what to do and trying to get what to do to be done. INEC has ₦1 trillion budget, which has been largely disbursed to them so far. Our organization didn't need $100,000 to be able to build a platform that we have built. So it's essentially about the will. It's also largely about the competencies that are in the INEC ICT department and their willingness, essentially, political will, basically, to do what is right. And so they need to update their operating systems. They also need to update their knowledge of ICT, and also not just that, but also the ad hoc staff who are on ground need to also be trained and retrained. And interestingly, we didn't have to go through the idea or the methodology of trying to train Nigerians or the people of Osun State. I have been in various fora where conversations about the ICT penetration in Osun is very low. Some people place it at 50%, some people say it's 40% compared to most of the states in Nigeria. But it was quite interesting that the people of Osun State deployed and used their mobile phones on their own to report to us. We didn't have paid agents on the ground. We had our messages, and essentially our platform was crowdsourced. So we didn't have to pay or train agents physically. All we needed to do was to make a demo video and say, this is what it is, this is how to operate it, and this is how you should use the application. And we were surprised at the way and how the people of Osun turned out in terms of using it. In less than 1 week of deployment, we had 721 people different across 92% of the polling units covered in Osun State used the platform. In less than 1 week, we started our operations on Tuesday, and by Saturday afternoon, we had over 721 subscribers and over 90% of the polling units, of the area, local governments covered. Sorry about that, not the polling units, wards and polling and local governments covered. So it was a very interesting deployment of tool. And so when INEC budgets these huge amounts of monies for trainings and for technology and all that, and then we still get what we are getting from that technology, it's a little bit worrisome. And we think that they need to do a whole lot. They need to go back to the drawing board to ensure that they give us the best and the best in the 2027 elections, which is much more broader, which is much more bigger, which has much wider representation than what we experience in Osun State.
Okay, let me go to Mr. Omipidan very quickly as we look set to wrap up this conversation. What we saw just over the weekend showed a different side of the people, especially the electorate. Despite the fact that monies were doled out, bread, name it, some of them said they would collect, but they will still have to vote their conscience. Is this the death of money and incentives used during elections? Are we seeing the death of that as we move into 2027?
Honestly, I am persuaded to think along that line. I have carried out studies before in Osun and elsewhere in the course of my PhD education, and I have come to realize that apart from political communication strategies, there are other factors that influence outcome of the election, and one of them is the incentives we just mentioned. However, it would be too early to conclude if those incentives were the major determinant of the outcome of the election. And why do I say this? Osogbo people, for example, they were very loud in their condemnation of some of the things the governor was doing, especially with regards to developing where it comes from at the expense of Osogbo, the state capital. And they shared some WhatsApp messages inviting their sons and daughters to ensure that they do not allow the governor to return. But at the end of the day, the governor won Osogbo with about 4,000 or so margin. So for me, I think one will have to study the pattern of election in Osun very well. And I say so with all sense of modesty because in 1999, when Chief Bisi Akande was elected governor, there's a consensus of opinion that he did very well, yet he lost a re-election. And here is a man where some of us believe that has not done very well, yet he was rewarded with the re-election. So for me, I think Osun electorate need to be studied very, very well so as to make a valid deduction and conclusion about their behavior with regards to election outcomes.
I can only imagine that, especially looking at how the voter turnout had proved to be. Lastly, I mean, I could throw this question to both of you. Let me go back to you, Mr. Obono. Despite the threats, despite the intimidation, we did see voter turnout come to a highest number that many never thought would happen. What do you think was necessary or was the backbone for these voters to step out, regardless of the threats that were thrown at them?
So first of all, I think that we need to really, really give it to the people of Osun State for their tenacity, their ability to hold their grounds. This is highly, highly commendable in the midst of the pre-election violence and all the assessments that that have happened. So we need to give it to Osun people. So another thing is the fact that it is the love the people have for the governor personally. Some say it was more the reward for the good work he has done. Others say because he's such an entertainer. And then there's also the individual factor, in terms of youth mobilization and all that. So I think, and also the fact that the security agencies who were deployed, changed the narrative a lot more, because people then started using the security agencies to say, oh, they are not here to kill you, they are not here to do wrong, they are here to essentially support us, to protect us from, attacks and the rest of that. So that also boosted the confidence of the people of Osun State and made them to come out believing that they will be safe and they will be handled with so much neutrality and care. So I think all these factors play a very huge role to the fact that they came out. So
in all of this,
the role of civil society.
Just to butt in, I mean, I know you want to go the civil society organizations. One name is missing. We've not also talked about the IG of police. Listening very clearly to the people of Osun State who said there's a certain CP, they don't want him, he made the switch, and then all of a sudden the deployment and so on. Don't you think the IG should also receive some form of accolades for his job well done?
I think so.
Yes. So it's not just about the IG, but it's also about it's also about the entire election management team from the government's perspective or from the government's point. So you see how the IG replaced the commissioner of police, and then the REC was also replaced. The state residential electoral officer was also replaced, and they brought in a different REC to conduct the election, I think from Ondo State also, and she did excellent work. So the entire electoral management system was done so well. From the REC to the IG, so whoever provided that model needs to be commended, because both on the police side, on the INEC side, it was well managed to show neutrality. And this is one of the things that most likely brought confidence or restored confidence on the people of Osun State to come out and ensure that they cast their votes.
All right.
So, yes, I believe the institutions played a key role and civil society organizations did so.
All right. Thank you very much for that. Mr. Omipidan, the governor has said that there is no victor, no vanquished. His urge for reconciliation. What will true and just reconciliation would look like? And I ask this because, like you've mentioned, there have been incidences of vote trading. The days and weeks leading up to the elections, Nigerians lost their lives. Osun State citizens lost their lives. On the day of the election, the same Senator Father Onsi, who was, who came to limelight, I'll use that loosely, days before, because of the statement he made, was seen in Elisha again, telling them to monitor the party that people vote for. So will true justice and true reconciliation be possible without actually digging into the events that occurred pre and during the election?
Let me be very frank and honest with you. to achieve true reconciliation rests solely on the text of Mr. Governor. And I say this with all sense of modesty. Just yesterday, before I left Osun, Mbasekei, I saw videos of persons being attacked by supporters of the Accord Party. And so I will implore the governor to act his words, because I have not heard anything this morning, but I can tell you that if the governor does not manage the situation well, violence is likely to break out today. How do I mean? The members of the PDP who are now in Accord, who believe that they conducted an election, a local government election and won, will forcibly take over the council. If they don't do it today, they will do it before the week ends. And there might be resistance in some areas. And where you have such resistance, certainly it's likely going to lead to violence. So I will implore the governor to rein in the non-state actors that are his supporters. Because the truth is that I tell people the governor didn't show leadership with regards to the issue of violence. Because from the day he was sworn in November 2022, if you have opportunity, you can look for the video. On the ground of the stadium where he was being sworn in, his supporters were attacking Amotekun personnel simply because they believed that Amotekun personnel at the time was put in place by the outgoing administration, which I served. Now, there is a certain character the governor appointed as a chief security officer. With all sense of modesty, go and do a background checkup of that character. A former police officer is not qualified to be governor's CSO because he has litany of records of anti-human rights, record. He was alleged to have killed 2 people. I was the one who authored the press release at the time, calling for investigation. But what we gathered was that because he had been penciled down as the chief security officer to the governor, he was not likely to be investigated.
Who are you referring to? Just so we're clear.
Is it?
Who are you referring to?
At the time, he was CSP Omoyele. As we speak today, after serving as governor CSO, he's the head of Amotekun in the state. And this same Amotekun went to Akinlalu to murder citizens in cold blood. The matter is still in court. The case is still on. So the governor needs to rein in some of his supporters who are non-state actors and who are known to be perpetrating violence in the state.
But that's not all the reports that we have, because you're speaking about violence and you're talking about the people supporting the governor. But the APC was also very much criticized for sponsoring and funding violence in Osun State. So when you're talking about the governor reining his people in, you're not speaking about the APC and the accusations leveled against the APC in the elections.
Look, the reason why I'm speaking about the governor is that he is the governor of the state. He is at the helm of affairs. You see, Father Onsi, go and check his records very well. Father Onsi only crossed to APC, I think about a year ago. And so everything that you see him do was what he did against APC 4 years ago. But the only reason why most people didn't hear about it was because of the character and personality of the principal Isaac, who was the governor at the time. He behaved like a statesman, and he insisted that his supporters must not take laws into their hands. Instead, they should report to the police. For me, what we saw with regards to violence in Osun, I want to refer to it as a balance of terror, because most of those who were part of the PDP who unleashed violence on APC 4 years ago, some of them moved to APC, and that was why we saw what we saw in that election. So I will always put it at the doorstep of the governor, because if, for instance, somebody has been alleged to kill somebody, and the next thing you see the same person sharing stage with the governor, the only conclusion you can draw is that the governor is endorsing what he's doing. And so to protect yourself, you are likely to take laws into your hands if they come for you the next time.
Well, I also wanted our other guests to still speak to that as well, because, again, like I did say, the allegations have been on both sides. We did see the days and weeks leading up to the elections when the governor came out himself to cry about the level of insecurity bedeviling the state and how violence seemed to have been the order of the day, calling on, help externally. He needed help in any shape or form. So from your perspective, can there be true reconciliation without a thorough investigation into the matters leading up to the election, the violence that occurred leading up onto the elections?
So I'll say this as someone who witnessed firsthand yesterday. By around this time yesterday, I was fidgeting with my team in the car because we went to Osun, and after the results, obviously we were leaving declaration, and we left yesterday morning at about 8 a.m. So by the time we get to the vehicle that we had hired, that will take us to Lagos, and then we'll come to Abuja, and then our team will disperse. Our vehicle was attacked. There was gunshots in Aregbe Junction or something, Aregbe Park, just right opposite the ADC secretariat. Someone shot at our vehicle, and people ran to. There was pandemonium. Obviously, everybody was running and scampering for safety, and then we ran into the vehicle and told the driver to move quickly. And the doors were flung open, and then somebody ran towards our vehicle and tried to pull the driver. I don't know for what reason, struggling the steering with him. And, we managed to run away and escaped to a safe location when the driver. So definitely as we're running or driving off, one of my colleagues' luggage dropped, and we had to beg the driver to please go back on foot to see if he can help us get it, since he knows the terrain better. So by the time he got to the same spot where all this was happening, there was blood stains on the floor, and according to what he told us, and he didn't come back with the bag again, and so that happened. So we were interrogating what must have transpired, because I'm not from Osun, nobody knows me, so to speak, in Osun, and my team also. But what we then discovered was that, the conversation we had with the driver was that particular park NURT is involved in the entire political landscape of Osun State. So that particular park was under PDP or under the state governor's control and government's control, when NURT now decided that, they are now in power, and they took it and gave it to APC. So the leadership of that. So what had happened was that, from our analysis, I'm not saying this is facts, from what I can guess, was that after the election, Accord members came to the park perhaps to take back full control of the park because they feel they are in power now. It could have been that the APC people were also trying to revolt and show dominance, because people were all on the streets jubilating. They were all happy and excited, So when they first raised an alarm to say, why are people running? My first instinct was like, people are jubilating and they are happy, and this is celebration mode, so people should move around. So bottom line is that the governor, like Mr. Omipidan has said, needs to quickly see how he can reconcile parties, and step into the fray and ensure that warring parties, elections are now over, it's time for governance, and that the election was highly contested, and because of that, there will be aggrieved parties, and the people who are aggrieved in Osun State are not just common people. We are talking about political gladiators who have played very critical roles at the national level. We are talking about defeating strong men who were once key players in the states and at the national level. So the best thing for him to do will be to reconcile all these parties, bring them to the table so that he can govern the next 4 years in Osun State peacefully. We haven't had a lot of insecurity situations in Osun State in the past. This election highlighted the insecurity, or brought insecurity in Osun State. So the easiest and the fastest thing for him to do before this thing escalates into a serious security threat in Osun State needs to be for him to try as much as possible to bring all the aggrieved parties together and move the state forward so they can move the state forward to developmental strides. They are doing already very well in the states in terms of security and development. And I think for that to happen, he needs to bring everybody back to the drawing board so he can govern peacefully in the next 4 years.
Thank you very much, Mr. Obono. And if you can, in less than a minute, Mr. Omipidan, as we wrap up this conversation, we've seen that Osun didn't turn out to be the bloodbath so many had predicted. And this is due to many factors. But come January 2027, we will not be able to deploy such an amount of security operatives on a national scale. We just don't have the resources and the strength for that. What would make those elections peaceful in 2027? And what work do we need to put in to ensure that the upcoming general elections are peaceful, free, and fair?
Well, for me, I must commend my colleague over there, even though he has not lived in Osun. I can tell you that the analysis he gave with regards to the park was the true situation. I mean, it's the true situation of things. The NUTRW, which is sympathetic to the APC, took over the park about a month or two ago. And usually in the South, it's common in the Southwest, once a party is in power, once they lose power, the other party, before swearing in, take over the park violently. But in Osun's case, they did not even wait for the election to be over before the APC sympathizers took over the park. So certainly, those you saw engage in shootouts where they are called party trying to take over the parks back, haven't won, the election, and probably the APC people were trying to, resist it. That is why I insist that the governor has a bigger role to play. With regards to 2027, with what I have seen so far, one, there's every likelihood for the governor to cross over to APC. But whether he crosses to APC or not, since he has been mounting his endorsement of Mr. President.
Oh, looks like there's been network glitch there. We've been on. Okay.
Go ahead.
It's for both parties to come together to work for the election of Mr. President. And if the two of them are collaborating to work for Mr. President, I do not see how there will be violence.
All right. Thank you very much for joining us, gentlemen. We've had the former Chief Press Secretary to former Governor Oyetola Ismail Omipidan on the phone with us, joining us virtually, and Executive Director at TAP Initiative for Citizens Development, Mbasekei Obono. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us.